Therapy. What is therapy? Hi, this is Suzanne Wachtel, and the subject today is, what is therapy? Why do people go to therapy? Does it help? What is the purpose? So for those of you who have been going to therapy for many years, you understand that it really is such a wonderful tool to have someone objective in your life to speak to that can help you decide or figure out how to manage and handle the challenges in your life. For those of you who have never been to therapy, it is not for crazy people. It is far from for crazy people. It is really for normal crazy, which is the day-to-day, everyday life challenges and chaos and relationships and things that happen, grief, children, parents, siblings, finances, careers, so on and so forth. And therapy is really an opportunity to just sit with your thoughts and feelings with someone who's not judging, someone who is hopefully knowledgeable, educated, and objective, and really sort through the emotions and feelings you're having about situations going on in your life. And then together, with some guidance, maybe some prodding and questioning, you come up with solutions, sometimes very simple solutions, and sometimes more complicated solutions, but nevertheless, definitely solutions and tools for coping and handling life's day-to-day challenges. So often when you are presented with, let's say, family situations, and you're together with people that trigger you, being triggered. Okay, let me talk about being triggered. So being triggered is when somebody more or less pushes your button on a sensitive topic that triggers your emotional state. So it could trigger anger, it could trigger sadness, it could trigger defensiveness, just a trigger. So when you're with people that trigger you, and it is super important to learn that you're being triggered, to understand where your feelings are on certain matters, and that when you get triggered, what does that feel like? How do you handle it? What do you do? Do you go off? Do you say things that you can't unsay and people can't unhear? Do you behave in such a way that later you feel embarrassed and ashamed and regret the way you reacted to words? So the important thing is knowing when you're being triggered, what to do about it, and then to have the coping skills. So I would say when you're going to be with a group of people that may or may not trigger you, perhaps a family gathering like Thanksgiving or a reunion of sorts, and you know that certain people have a way of pushing your buttons, it's so important to prepare in advance, to know that this could happen, to be ready for it, to take some deep, deep breaths and try to relax. Perhaps even put yourself imagining that you're in a bubble that you can see out of and be a part of a place, people, and things, but not really experience the energy that's going on. So to give you a very good example, when I was a little girl, my mother was a beatnik. And a beatnik, if for those that don't know, was before hippies. And a beatnik was like a free thinker, someone who just was an artist. And this was my mother. This was how I was raised. So my mother, a beatnik, decided that it would be a really good idea to move to Europe and travel around. And I was just a little girl, maybe 5-6 years old. And she took me all through Europe with her on her escapades. And one of the events that stands out in my mind, we're talking 1963, 64, 65, was we moved to Germany. And in Germany, my mother met up with a group of young people, maybe from 18 to, say, 40, perhaps. 40 seemed old in those days. And they literally they rented a theater like a Broadway theater, like a theater where plays go on. And the people lived there. We lived there for about a month on stage. People went on with their everyday activities, whether it was cooking or gathering for discussions, literally living as a group of people on the stage. And the Germans were fascinated with this and would buy tickets literally. You could buy tickets throughout the day and night and come and watch people living. And the name of it, the production, was called Living Theater. I would assume that would probably be one of the first reality shows, right? But live. And so what I learned from that experience was that you don't have to be in the cast to observe and experience the show. You can actually sit in the audience, eat your popcorn, drink your soda or wine or whatever, and watch the show and really participate by observation. So taking that experience and bringing it to our present day lives, right? And going into situations, whether you have social anxiety or you're being interviewed for a position or you're going to a meeting and perhaps a couple of the people, for some reason, their energy makes you feel uncomfortable. You can go into audience mode where you're really not part of what's going on. You're in your bubble. You've taken breaths, you've prepared, and you're observing. You're watching people interact. You're watching people engage. You're listening. You're experiencing the event that's going on, but you're not reacting to it. You're not vulnerable to it. So I would say that is one of the tools of therapy. Other tools of therapy are to really be in the moment. For example, if you have extreme anxiety, some of the advice that I would give would be to talk about like what's going on right here, right now, this breath, this conversation you're having right here, at this moment with me. In this moment, is anything bad happening? In this very moment, are you taking an easy breath? In this very moment, what does it feel like to breathe in and breathe out and just be present right here, right now? That is really a way to learn about not going ahead in your thoughts, which is really a fantasy because we have no idea what will happen in an hour, in a day, in a week, in a month, in a year, in a decade, right? And we do know what's happened in the past, but we can't alter it. So to go back and relive trauma and relive negative experience is not helpful for today, right here, right now. And for people with anxiety, the breath work is really fabulous. There are so many modalities today that help with everything if you're aware of them. From podcasts that teach you about topics, like people with a personality of being a bully. I know narcissist is a new buzzword, but being in a relationship with somebody like that, what does it feel like? What can you do about it? So there's podcasts. There's also crystals. There's also meditation. There's yoga. There's exercise. There's nature. There's a plethora of options to help cope with day-to-day life. We live in a very different world today, 2024, and with all of the artificial intelligence and all of our children being raised, having come through the pandemic, having, all of these kids everybody's on their phones, from babies to 90-year-olds, artificial intelligence. It's just a very, very different world, and navigating it at times can be extremely challenging because after all, no matter what's going on, we are human beings and we are wired, right? A certain way. We're wired to react. We have fight or flight. We have a lot of pre-programming. We have ancestral trauma. We have childhood trauma, things that happen to us throughout our lives that have made an impact on how we react. We also are born with different natures. Some people have a very laid back, gentle, easygoing nature. Their nervous system is very mellow. Some people have a very, like neurotic, energetic, reactive nature, where even as babies, they cried a lot. They were super sensitive to noise and people. And so having been born with a nature, obviously something we can't control, and then being put into situations, right, that either were good for our nature or very challenging, really determines often how we react even as adults. So with all that being said, I would say that therapy is the most generous gift that you can give yourself. It's like taking a master's program on you, learning who you are, what you like, what you don't like, really figuring out who you want to be and what kind of nature you have and what kind of reactions you have and what kind of coping system you're using and defense mechanisms, and learning communication to communicate feelings, good or bad, in a way that doesn't offend or trigger other people. So all of these skills and all of these tools are what we work on in therapy. So for what is therapy? Therapy is the most beautiful gift you can give yourself. It's the art of talking. It's talking to someone who's making eye contact with you, who's listening to you, hearing you, and helping to guide you and teach you how to help yourself throughout the rest of your life. I started going to therapy in my early 20s. It was by coincidence that I ended up in a therapist's office. And I will tell you that the way it helped me and literally changed and saved my life was the very reason I became a therapist. I didn't go back to school until 32 years old, when I finally figured out what I wanted to be. And I will tell you that every day I get to go to work, I get to help people, and sometimes really make a difference in their life. And I cannot really express how rewarding and amazing that purpose and passion is for me. So I am just playing forward what has helped and healed my life, and hopefully you will find your therapist and you will continue to grow and learn and figure out how to live the easiest, most gentle, fulfilling, happy life. Thank you for joining me today on What is Therapy, and I look forward to speaking to you again on a different topic. I've decided to make these not too long because we're all very busy, but even a little bit of information, in my opinion, can be helpful. So have a great day. Namaste.